In the heart of an ancient village woven deeply into the fabric of the sprawling savanna, the story of Nkoyo, the blind virgin, began to unfold under the vast African sky. Known to all as an enigma wrapped in the whispers of destiny and fate, Nkoyo was both revered and pitied by her people. Despite her blindness, she possessed a beauty that seemed to transcend the mere physical, casting a spell of serene grace that no eye could miss. Born during the fiery embrace of the sun and the earth, when the air was thick with the scent of blooming jacarandas, Nkoyo's blindness was seen as a sign. The village seer, Odekene, with eyes clouded by the weight of years and secrets, proclaimed her birth as a harbinger of profound change. "She sees not with her eyes but with her heart," he would often murmur, his voice carrying the weight of ominous prophecy. As Nkoyo grew, so did the tales of her supposed destinies. Mothers hushed their children with her story, and men often spoke in low tones about her condition, shaking their heads in a mixture of awe and fear. Her presence was a constant reminder of something extraordinary yet unsettling. However, despite her revered status, an unspoken discomfort lingered around her. No man in the village dared to court her. It wasn't due to her blindness, but rather a pervasive fear of the unknown that surrounded her very essence. The local lore was rich with tales of those touched by the gods, and Nkoyo, with her unseeing eyes that seemed to pierce through the veils of reality, was marked by the divine. Nkoyo's daily life was filled with the ordinary tasks of village life, yet she performed each with an extraordinary elegance. Her mother, Abasiama, a robust and tender-hearted woman, had taught her to weave baskets with patterns that told stories of the village's history and myths. With each fold and twist, Nkoyo's fingers danced gracefully, weaving not just materials, but also the threads of her own story into the fabric of her creations. The village square was often abuzz with activities, and Nkoyo, guided by the subtle scents and sounds, navigated it with a confidence that belied her blindness. Children would often pause in their games to watch her pass, drawn to her by a curiosity that was as pure as it was poignant. One day, as the Harmattan winds began to whisper across the lands, bringing with them the dry season, a stranger arrived in the village. Tall, with skin the color of rich mahogany and eyes that seemed to reflect the depths of the rivers, he carried himself with the assurance of one who knows their power. His arrival stirred something in the air, a charge that hinted at the turning of fate's own wheel. The villagers watched warily as he approached the center of the village where Nkoyo sat weaving her baskets. His presence commanded attention, and a hush fell over the crowd as he stopped before her, a smile playing on his lips. "Nkoyo, daughter of the unseen forces, I have traveled through lands far and wide to find the maiden who sees with her heart," he said, his voice rich and melodious. The villagers exchanged looks of astonishment and apprehension. Who was this man who dared to address the blind virgin so boldly? And what did his arrival portend for Nkoyo and the fate of their village? Nkoyo turned her face towards the sound of his voice, her expression serene yet unreadable. The breeze picked up, swirling around the square, as if nature itself was eager to listen to the unfolding drama. The stranger's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter in Nkoyo's life, one that would unravel the mysteries of her birth and challenge the very foundations of her existence. As the villagers looked on, the threads of destiny began to weave a new tapestry, one that promised to be as complex and beautiful as the patterns on Nkoyo's baskets. As the wind carried whispers of change, the man who had disrupted the serene life of the village with his bold declaration stood firm before Nkoyo. His name was Kofi, and he bore the essence of distant lands, his accent tinged with the cadence of foreign tongues. He was a wanderer, a seeker of truths hidden in the folds of legends, and he had come with a purpose that intrigued and unnerved the villagers in equal measure. "Nkoyo," Kofi continued, his voice steady and clear, "I have heard of your sight beyond sight, and I believe that together we can unveil secrets long buried under the sands of time. Your gifts are not a curse but a key to unlocking stories lost to our ancestors." The crowd that had gathered around the square buzzed with curiosity and skepticism. No outsider had ever directly sought out Nkoyo, nor had anyone proposed such a partnership. Nkoyo's mother, Abasiama, stood by her daughter, her protective presence a comforting contrast to the ripple of tension surrounding them. Nkoyo herself felt a stir within her spirit, a flutter that felt like the wings of a nightjar taking flight at dusk. Kofi's words resonated with a part of her that she had only ever explored in the solitude of her thoughts. Was it possible that her blindness, which many perceived as a limitation, was indeed a gift as Kofi suggested? "My sight is not of the eyes but of the heart," Nkoyo replied, her voice resonating with a newfound layer of resolve. "If it is true that my condition can serve a greater purpose, I'm willing to explore this path, though I must know more before I agree to anything." Kofi nodded, expecting her cautious approach. "In my travels, I have encountered tales of an ancient relic, one that is said to grant profound wisdom and power to the one who can unlock its secrets. This relic, however, cannot be seen with the eyes. It must be felt with the soul. I believe you are the one who can do this." The proposition hung in the air, heavy with the scent of opportunity and danger. The villagers murmured among themselves. The idea of their Nkoyo being part of such an endeavor filled them with mixed feelings of pride and fear. Abasiama stepped forward, her tone firm yet tinged with concern. "And what will this mean for her? What risks will my daughter face in pursuing this relic?" Kofi turned his gaze to Abasiama, understanding her fears. "There is risk, as there is in all ventures that are worth pursuing. However, I vow to protect her with my life, and I believe that her abilities will guide us safely on this path." The promise did little to ease the mother's worry, but she knew her daughter well enough to recognize the spark of interest in her eyes, a spark that no mother could quench. If Nkoyo believed this was her path, then Abasiama would not stand in her way, though her heart quivered like a leaf in a storm at the thought of any peril that might lie ahead. The village elder, a stoic man named Obot, stepped forward, his walking stick tapping the ground with authority. "If Nkoyo decides to pursue this, she will not go alone. We must send with her a guardian from our village, someone who knows our ways and can ensure her ties to home remain strong." Kofi nodded in agreement, respecting the elder's wisdom. "It shall be as you say. Let us prepare then, for when the moon is next full, we shall embark on this path, not for glory, but for understanding." As the meeting dispersed, Nkoyo felt the weight of many gazes upon her, their thoughts a tangled weave of doubt and belief. But within her, the heart's sight grew clearer, the flutter of anticipation building a rhythm that promised to guide her steps through whatever lay ahead. This was no ordinary path, but then, Nkoyo was no ordinary maiden. The moon had waxed to its fullest, casting a silver glow over the village as if blessing the upcoming endeavor. Preparations had been underfoot since Kofi's arrival, with the village coming together to equip Nkoyo and her designated guardian Adaobi, a warrior whose reputation was as steadfast as the baobab tree. Adaobi, known for her prowess and unwavering spirit, was chosen not only for her skill with the spear, but also for her deep sense of loyalty to the village's traditions. Her presence was a comfort to Abasiama and the other villagers, who placed their trust in her protective instincts. As the appointed night approached, the air was filled with the mixed sense of earth and anticipation. Nkoyo stood beside Adaobi, both figures outlined against the moonlit sky, their silhouettes a testament to the village's resilience and hope. "Remember, the strength you need is already within you," Abasiama whispered to her daughter, her words a gentle breeze of encouragement. She handed Nkoyo a small pouch, filled with herbs and stones of protection according to the village's ancient customs. Nkoyo clasped her mother's gift, feeling the textures and breathing in the familiar scents, a reminder of home to carry with her. "I will hold this close," she promised, her voice steady, though her heart beat a tumultuous rhythm, echoing the drums that began to sound throughout the village. Kofi and Adaobi led the way out of the village, moving towards the dense foliage that marked the beginning of the great forest. The drum's beat faded behind them, replaced by the nocturnal chorus of the wilderness, the distant call of the nightjars, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, and the whisper of the trees. The forest was alive with sounds and sensations, and Nkoyo, with her acute senses, felt each vibration and stir of the air. Kofi watched her with admiration, seeing how she moved with confidence, her steps sure despite the unseen path that lay before her. Adaobi remained vigilant, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. Her role was clear: ensure the safety of the mission, a responsibility she bore with a solemn pride. Together, they traversed deeper into the unknown, guided by the stars and the intuitive pull that Nkoyo felt towards their unseen goal. The night wore on, the moon trailing across the sky like a silent guardian. At times they would stop, Kofi consulting old maps marked with symbols that seemed to dance under the moonlight, mysterious and compelling. Nkoyo, relying on her other senses, would often pause, feeling the shifts in the air, her face turned towards the moon as if in silent conversation. Their path led them through a valley shadowed by towering cliffs, where ancient paintings adorned the rock faces, untouched by time. These depictions spoke of legends and beasts, of gods and mortals, their colors vibrant even in the moonlight. Here Kofi paused, his voice low as he shared the tales each painting represented, weaving a tapestry of history and myth that captivated Nkoyo's imagination. As dawn tinged the horizon with the first blush of morning, they reached a clearing that seemed untouched by human hands. At its center stood an old baobab tree, its trunk wide and welcoming, branches stretching out like the arms of the earth itself. "It is here," Kofi said, a reverent tone in his voice as he approached the tree. "The heart of the forest, where the earth whispers secrets to those who dare to listen." Nkoyo stepped forward, her hand outstretched to touch the ancient bark, feeling the pulse of the tree, as ancient and profound as the land itself. Here, under the watchful eyes of her companions and the lingering stars, she would seek the hidden truths, her heart open and her spirit ready to receive the whispers of the earth. As the first light of dawn painted the world in hues of gold and amber, the clearing where they stood seemed to awaken with a life of its own. The ancient baobab, under whose vast branches they now gathered, hummed with an energy that was both mysterious and inviting. Nkoyo, with her fingertips grazing the rough texture of the bark, felt a resonance deep within her soul, a call that beckoned her closer to the heart of the tree. Kofi, observing the interaction between Nkoyo and the natural world around her, knew they were at the precipice of something profound. He carefully laid out the relics and symbols they had brought with them, each item placed with precision around the base of the baobab. These items, ancient artifacts from his travels, were meant to aid in unlocking the secrets that were believed to be safeguarded by the spirit of the forest. Adaobi, ever watchful, circled the perimeter of the clearing, her eyes sharp for any sign of disturbance. Her role as guardian was not merely physical, but spiritual as well, ensuring that the sanctity of their undertaking was preserved against any who might wish them ill, seen or unseen. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows that danced playfully around them, Nkoyo knelt at the base of the baobab. Her hands hovered over the artifacts, each one whispering stories of ancient days, of battles fought and wisdom gained. The air around her seemed to shimmer with the weight of unspoken words, the silence a canvas upon which the past began to paint its tales. In this place, we seek the wisdom of the ancients, the guidance of the spirits who watch over these lands, Kofi intoned, his voice a soft echo in the tranquil morning. Nkoyo, daughter of unseen visions, let your heart listen to the echoes of the earth. Nkoyo closed her eyes, her breath a gentle rhythm syncing with the pulse of the land. A breeze stirred, whispering through the leaves of the baobab, carrying with it voices of a time long past. The spirits of the forest, ancient and wise, began their silent converse with her, their words not spoken but felt, a deep vibration that resonated with the core of her being. The artifacts around her grew warm, their energies amplified by her presence and the sacredness of the site. Symbols etched in the artifacts, unseen by her eyes but known to her touch, began to make sense, each one a key unlocking deeper layers of knowledge and truth. Adeobi watched in awe as the air around Nkoyo shimmered with a subtle luminescence. Never had she witnessed such a communion between mortal and divine, and she felt a profound reverence for the path they had embarked upon. Time seemed to fold upon itself, the sun's journey across the sky unnoticed by those in the clearing. The world outside the sacred space of the baobab tree receded, leaving only the truth seeker and her guardians in communion with the voices of the earth. As the day waned, and the sun began its descent towards the horizon, Nkoyo slowly opened her eyes. The brilliance that had filled them was not of sight, but of understanding, a clarity that transcended visual perception. She rose to her feet, the artifacts now cool to the touch, their energy spent in the sacred exchange. "We have what we came for," she spoke softly, her voice resonant with the newfound wisdom. "The spirits have shared their secrets. The path forward is revealed through the whispers of the past." Kofi nodded, a smile of relief and satisfaction spreading across his face. He had gambled on the truth seeker's abilities, and the gamble had paid off. Together, they had ventured into the unknown, and the rewards were beyond what any of them had anticipated. Adeobi, stepping forward, placed a reassuring hand on Nkoyo's shoulder. "Let us return," she said, "for now we carry not just our stories, but the stories of the ancients, entrusted to us to protect and to share." The trio gathered their belongings, the sacred artifacts carefully wrapped and stored, each now a bearer of the whispers of the baobab. As they left the clearing, the shadows lengthened, and the forest seemed to sigh, a sound of completion, of cycles continuing, and of stories waiting to be told under the watchful eyes of the next seekers of truth. The trek back through the dense foliage of the forest was marked by a contemplative silence, a mutual respect for the depth of the encounter they had experienced. The baobab's whispers lingered in their ears, each step away from the clearing a thoughtful measure of the distance they now carried within them. As the canopy above softened the harshness of the noonday sun, Kofi led with an ease born of his understanding that their return was not just a movement through space, but a procession of the profound insights they now harbored. Nkoyo walked closely behind, her senses heightened, not just by her natural disposition, but by the knowledge she had absorbed from the ancient tree. Adeobi's watchful eyes missed nothing, a guardian not only against potential threats, but also a sentinel for the profound change that had taken place in Nkoyo. The warrior observed how Nkoyo's steps seemed surer, her head held with an air of serene authority, as if each movement was guided by the wisdom of ages. The forest, ever a living entity, seemed to recognize their changed states and responded with a vibrant display of life. Birds called in melodious tunes, perhaps in celebration, or perhaps in recognition of their successful communion with the spirits. Small animals, usually skittish, paused in their routines to watch the trio pass, their eyes curious and unafraid. As they approached the village, the sound of the river that skirted the eastern edge became a welcoming murmur. The water, sparkling under the touch of the sun, flowed with the promise of continuity and life, mirroring the flow of ancient wisdom that now ran through Nkoyo. Upon their arrival, the village erupted in a mixture of joy and reverence. News of their safe return spread quickly, and soon a gathering formed around them, eager to hear of their encounter. The elder, Obot, stood at the forefront, his face a mask of stoic curiosity. Nkoyo, standing before her people, felt the weight of their expectations and the responsibility of the knowledge she now carried. She raised her hands, calling for silence, and when the crowd settled, her voice, clear and resonant, broke the hush. "We have touched the whispers of the ancients," she began, her words deliberate and filled with the power of her experience. The baobab spoke of cycles and seasons, of the knowledge that binds us to the past and guides us into the future. Kofi stepped forward, his presence a solid reassurance of the truth in Nkoyo's words. "The artifacts have revealed their stories, intertwined with our own history, showing us paths we might walk, not in shadow but in the light of understanding." Adeobi, though less accustomed to speaking before the crowd, found her voice. "I stood as guardian, but I too learned from the spirits of the forest. We are protected, not just by spears and shields, but by the wisdom we respect and preserve." The villagers listened, captivated by the depth of the revelations shared. Their eyes, reflecting a myriad of emotions from awe to fear, remained fixed on Nkoyo, who now seemed to them not just a village maiden, but a vessel of profound spiritual connection. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the assembly, the village elder, Obot, stepped forward. "Let us take these stories, these truths, and weave them into the fabric of our lives. Let them strengthen not just our spirits, but our bonds to each other and to the land that sustains us." The gathering dispersed slowly, each person touched in some way by the echoes of the ancients that had been brought back to them. As the night closed in, the stars twinkling in a sky free of the day's heat, Nkoyo felt the ancient rhythms of the earth sync with her heartbeat, a symphony of the past and present melded into one. As days turned into nights and the rhythm of village life resumed, the impact of Nkoyo's encounter at the ancient baobab became subtly interwoven into daily activities. Her insights, once mere echoes from the forest, now resonated in the hearts and minds of her people, influencing decisions and traditions with a new depth of wisdom. Nkoyo found herself at the center of this transformation, a beacon whose unseen visions guided her community through both mundane and momentous days. With each morning, she took her place by the great banyan tree at the village's edge, a spot that had become a place of counsel. Here, villagers sought her guidance, bringing forth their concerns and curiosities, their disputes and dreams. One morning, Under the soft glow of dawn, a young farmer named Ejike approached Nkoyo with a dilemma that had troubled his household. "The rains have been sparse this season, and my crops suffer. I fear the harvest will not sustain us through the year," he confessed, his brow furrowed with worry. Nkoyo listened intently, her hands resting on the woven mat that spread beneath her. After a moment of silent contemplation, she spoke. "The spirits of the earth are whispering of change, of the need to adapt our ways. Perhaps it is time to consider the crops that thirst less and embrace the rhythm of the seasons as they are now." Ejike nodded, understanding the wisdom in her words. The solution was not merely to lament the lack of rain, but to align with the changing climate, to experiment with seeds more suited to the current conditions. As the day progressed, more villagers sought Nkoyo's counsel. With each query, she offered insights that, while simple, seemed imbued with the profound understanding she had gleaned from the ancient spirits. Her reputation as a sage grew, not just within her own village, but in neighboring communities as well. Kofi, who had remained in the village, observed Nkoyo's growing influence with pride. His initial journey to seek her out had sparked a significant transformation, not only in Nkoyo, but in himself as well. He found himself more attuned to the subtle energies of the land and the people, a connection that deepened his own practices and beliefs. One evening, as the sky painted itself with the vibrant colors of sunset, Kofi approached Nkoyo at her place by the banyan tree. "Your guidance has brought much prosperity and peace to your people," he remarked, his tone both reflective and admiring. Nkoyo smiled, her face turning toward the fading light. "It is not my guidance alone, Kofi. It is the voice of the land, the ancestors, and the spirits that speak through me. I am but a vessel for their wisdom." Adaobi, who often accompanied Nkoyo, added her thoughts. "And as a guardian, I see that our paths are not only defended by physical might, but by the strength of our heritage and the depth of our understanding." As night fell and the stars began their watch, the trio sat in contemplative silence. The village around them hummed with the gentle sounds of an evening winding down, a community secure in the knowledge that they were guided by a profound connection to the spiritual world. The days ahead promised more visitors, more questions, and more opportunities for Nkoyo to bridge the world of spirits and the realm of men. Each conversation, each piece of advice, wove a stronger thread in the fabric of their collective existence, reinforcing the bonds between the seen and the unseen, the past and the present. In the weeks that followed, Nkoyo's counsel became a beacon that drew people not only from her village, but from distant ones as well. Her wisdom, deeply rooted in the spiritual connection she had nurtured, was a wellspring that many sought in times of uncertainty and change. One day, as the sun rose high and fierce, a group from a neighboring village crossed the dusty paths to seek Nkoyo's insights. Among them was Amina, a weaver renowned for her intricate designs that seemed to tell stories of their own. Her presence brought a new texture to the gathering, her questions weaving through the spiritual and the material world. "A blight has touched our crops, and though we have tried many remedies, none have prevailed," Amina explained, her hands clutching a piece of her woven cloth, symbols of harvest and prosperity intricately embedded in the fabric. "We seek to understand the deeper meaning behind this plight, to harmonize once again with the land." Nkoyo listened, her expression thoughtful, her blind eyes not seeing but perceiving the threads of distress that Amina carried. "The land speaks in many tongues," she replied after a pause. "Sometimes it whispers in the rustle of the leaves, other times it cries out in the barren fields. To understand its language, we must listen not only with our ears but with our spirits." She suggested a ceremony of renewal, a rekindling of the bond between the people and the earth. "Gather your village at the new moon," Nkoyo instructed. "Offer songs of forgiveness and renewal. Plant new seeds not only in your fields but in your hearts." Amina nodded, her face reflecting the mix of hope and reverence that Nkoyo's words inspired. She returned to her village with a new vision, one that extended beyond the immediate troubles to a deeper communion with the earth. Meanwhile, Kofi found himself increasingly involved in the spiritual affairs of the village, his own path illuminated by the ongoing revelations from Nkoyo's counsel. He began documenting the stories and lessons that emerged from the daily gatherings, creating a chronicle of this remarkable time. Adaobi, ever vigilant, sensed a shift in the air, a subtle stirring that suggested their work was far from complete. One evening, she approached Nkoyo with a concern that had been growing in her mind. "The spirits have been restless," she reported, her voice low. There is a tension, as if the land itself is bracing for something unseen. Nkoyo received the warrior's observations with a nod, her mind attuned to the vibrations of the unseen worlds. We must prepare, she acknowledged. The spirits warn of a trial to come, one that will test the strength of the bonds we have nurtured. Together, they planned a vigil, a night where the village would gather to fortify their collective spirit and reinforce their connection to the ancestral forces. The event was set for the coming full moon, a time when the veil between worlds was thin and the voices of the ancestors carried clearly on the wind. As the appointed night arrived, the village came alive with the glow of firelight and the scent of burning sage. Songs filled the air, their melodies a blend of supplication and strength. Nkoyo stood at the heart of the assembly, her presence a calm force amidst the swirl of energies. The vigil lasted until the first light crept over the horizon, the community's voices rising and falling in a powerful chorus that echoed through the trees and across the plains. As the sky brightened, a sense of unity pervaded the gathering, a collective strength that was palpable in the crisp morning air. With the rising sun, the villagers returned to their homes, the echoes of the night's chants lingering like a protective shroud. Nkoyo, Kofi, and Adaobi remained, watching the horizon, aware that the path they walked was lined with both shadows and light, each step a testament to their enduring faith in the wisdom of the ancients. As the village awakened to the aftermath of the vigil, a subtle change permeated the air, like the earth itself had shifted beneath their feet. This new day brought with it a sense of calm certainty, as if the communal chants and prayers had woven a protective tapestry over the land and its people. Nkoyo, feeling the difference in the spirit of the air, knew that the trials spoken of by the spirits were not far off, yet she also sensed that their collective strength had grown. The village, once a simple cluster of huts and paths, had transformed into a beacon of spiritual resilience, its heart beating in unison with the ancient rhythms of the land. Kofi, observing the shift, continued his work of documenting the events, his writings capturing the essence of the changes sweeping through the community. His records, meticulous and inspired, began to form a manuscript that promised to guide future generations. Adaobi, her senses always attuned to the slightest disturbance, remained on guard. Her vigilance was not born of fear, but of a profound duty to protect the peace and power that had been hard-won through the night's endeavors. The tranquility of the morning was disrupted when a runner from a distant village arrived, breathless and dust-streaked. He brought news of a gathering storm, not of clouds and wind, but of men whose hearts were set on claiming the secrets Nkoyo had unlocked. They were drawn not by spiritual need, but by the lure of power, a force that blinded them to the sacred balance that her visions upheld. The men come with intentions cloaked in darkness, the runner warned, his voice urgent. They seek to harness what they do not understand. The news tightened the threads of resolve within Nkoyo. She turned to her people, her voice clear and strong, carrying across the gathered crowd. We have awakened the strength of our ancestors, and with this strength we shall stand against those who come bearing shadows in their hearts. Preparations began at once. Adeobi organized the village's defenders, their strategies not only involving physical defense, but also spiritual fortifications. Kofi, with his deep knowledge of ancient lore, advised on the rituals that would strengthen their resolve and blind their enemies to the sacred truths they sought to exploit. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the village, the horizon darkened with the approaching figures of the outsiders. Their intentions, marred by greed and misunderstanding, formed a stark contrast to the unity and purpose that fortified the village. Nkoyo stood at the forefront, her blind eyes reflecting the last light of the sun, her spirit a beacon against the encroaching darkness. As the outsiders approached, she raised her voice in a chant, a call to the spirits of land and ancestors, her words weaving a barrier of light around her people. The confrontation was brief, yet intense. The power of the villagers, fueled by their pure intentions and spiritual might, overwhelmed the intruders. Confusion and fear took hold of the outsiders as they found themselves lost in illusions and misdirection, their resolve crumbling under the weight of their misguided desires. As the night reclaimed its quiet dominion, the outsiders retreated, their spirits broken, their understanding of power profoundly shaken. The village, illuminated by the strength of their unity and the purity of their purpose, stood unscathed, a testament to the power of ancestral wisdom and spiritual resolve. In the days that followed, peace settled deeply over the village. Nkoyo continued to serve as a conduit for the ancient wisdom, her visions a guiding light for all who sought her counsel. Kofi's manuscript became a legacy of this time, a record of the power of faith and unity against the forces of darkness. And so, the village thrived, guarded by the spirits and guided by the wisdom of the blind seer, their lives a continuous celebration of the ancient truths that had saved them. Each day a new verse in the ongoing song of their history.